And we're live. Welcome to the weekly sync for the new Diffs architecture workflow effort. I added some notes to the agenda from things that happened from last week's call. Inadvertently, we didn't pick someone to take care of the actual documentation of the blueprint, the core of it, and listing it on the published blueprints, saying that it's being worked on, what's the topic, who's the authors, and all that stuff. So it'd be nice to get that started, even though we don't have a lot of stuff in there, just having the placeholder that will then hold the conclusions and the documents that we'll be producing. It'd be nice to get that started. At least that's my understanding. That would be nice to get that started early in the process so that we can, make it evolve and everybody knows where to add stuff. Does that make sense, or is that blocked by anything that we currently have in flight?
I think it makes sense.
Bill, I didn't hear you. I only heard Thomas.
Yeah, I think we can just make it.
Right. Who wants to? You can take it. All right. Awesome. You volunteered. Great. And then we have some read-only points. These are just for you to be aware of, to participate asynchronously. We don't have to cover them here on the call. Okay. All right. Which brings us to the time. So we had a rough discussion on Slack since last call. And it seemed like, it will be pretty impossible to accommodate all time zones. So we were thinking about it, and we were thinking about having a 2 times per week alternating time slots. And the idea here is that we have one on a Tuesday, one on a Thursday, and if eventually some tasks come out of Tuesday, they could be presented the outcomes on a Thursday, or vice versa. Something comes out on a Thursday, we might be able to present it on a Tuesday and keep the ball rolling much faster. Because even though we don't have a deadline here in the document, our kind of goal was to have something by the end of the quarter, which could be challenging, but we want to move fast on this effort so we don't linger too much on the documentation side of things for too long. So the idea was these two things. And Patrick, you had a question here.
Yes. So I was wondering, is it too early for EMEA and too late for America? So it's is it only for APAC? But
that's what we were thinking. That's what we were thinking, and we're thinking about the ones that are excluded on the other one. I didn't make a point here at the bottom that the times aren't final, so we can bring them forward or backwards or later or earlier, depending on specific cases. Because, for example, the one on Tuesday would be, if I'm not mistaken, 6:30 for Pacific time. In case of Carrie, I think Thomas would be like 7:30 or something, with the current times of the daylight savings. So it feels like it's still a bit stretched at that point, and the one on Thursday I don't think they would be able to make it in the Pacific time. So time zones are hard, folks. So I'm pleased if you have any feedback, like for example, Patrick, if you think that it would make more. So for example, with having these 2 calls, it wouldn't be necessarily expectable that you would attend a Tuesday one, but you could be participating asynchronously by presenting some points and stuff for discussion, watching the recording, then eventually rediscussing that on a Thursday if you need to, could be beneficial. The whole point of it, even though you might not be able to attend both, you should at least watch the recording of the other one, which will use the streaming methodology to make sure that it's always available as soon as the call finishes. So what do you think? Should we adjust the times here? Do you have a specific suggestion?
Yeah, I'm just worried who's going to join the Thursday one.
You just joined the Thursday one?
I mean, who will join the Thursday one? Is
who?
It just me or?
So that's a good question. We have some folks. So I know we have David in Australia. We have some folks in source code, I think also in Australia. I'm not sure if they're developers though.
Regarding source code, it's Ash in Australia.
Right, Ash McKenzie. That's correct. So yeah, we do have some folks. The thing is, if I remember correctly, like 4 a.m. I would not be able to attend per se, or like 5 a.m. won't be able to attend. But the whole point of these calls is that they would be pretty much driven asynchronous as well. So if I have something outputting from Tuesday, you can add it on the Thursday to be like awareness for everybody, because the whole point is that everybody would still follow both calls. You don't have to be there, but you still follow the agendas of both calls because they would be the same agenda essentially. So yeah, I don't know. The other theory that I have is by starting as an effort to cover the most time zones possible, we start off with that for a couple of weeks, and then we'll see. If we notice that David and Ash, for some reason, are busy with some other stuff, or they don't know if they can participate, there's no problem with that. But if the calls are empty all the time, we might as well just try to unify it again into one. But at least giving an effort of giving it a inclusive schedule would be nice to start off with. But again, the specific times, we can adjust them. So unless anybody has any objections, we would go forward with the plan of having 2 calls, but the specific times still open for discussion, and we can tweak them before the next iteration of those calls. Anybody has any objections? I'll take that as a no. Great. So I'll have events, or basically I'll just update the events / calendar to reflect this. And yeah, that's all for that. Thank you for indulging. Next point. Last week we started discussing about documenting the current implementation of diffs across GitLab. And Patrick, just sort of like a status. You have an update here? Go ahead.
Yes. So we started documenting flow of some endpoints used by the merge request page, the diffs batch, the JSON endpoint, and the diffs JSON, which is used for the new merge request page. So I opened some MRs to add some basic flowcharts and a little bit detailed sequence diagrams. So they're now, not all of them, some of the diagrams can now be found in our documentation or developer doc. So yeah, you can build in there, but the sequence diagrams are a bit too small. So you need to zoom in on your browser.
But they're there, so.
Yep. Yeah, it's viewable if you zoom in.
Yeah, I think I know. This is what you're talking about, right? So this is the first one for diffs batch. Do you want to talk it through while we're here, or we could keep the recording?
I think it's better to like put it on your own time.
Okay, just let them just people dive in. Okay. So this is the diffs batch, and then the ones you're talking about is this particular thing. This is the viewing head, latest specific diff version for MRs. It'd be interesting to compare this with the ones for the repository. I'm guessing they're different. At least it's until a certain part.
There are some differences. Some will read from the database, some read from Italy.
Yeah, I was going to try to make it larger, but it's tricky. We should be able to open a mermaid on a new window, right? But I cheat.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
No, because you enlarge the size. Okay, I think I found it. Okay, I won't be sharing the screen anymore, but I broke the page. And so the status is that we have that already. So we still have other MRs in review. Igor, from your side, is this something that we could is it also achievable from the repository? To have this sort of flowcharts?
Yeah, it can be done. It can be done.
I know you're trying to squint to kind of see what's in there, but it would be
But
nice because I think one interesting exercise would be to look at those flows and just try to
Mhm.
see eventually things that one is doing that the other isn't, and try to see what we could or what potentially unify from the rail side of things.
It makes sense to me, and yeah, I'll have a look. I didn't have a chance to do it the previous week, but
Sure.
yeah, until the next call, we can discuss it again.
Feel free to raise it to Sean to delegate to someone else if you're busy with something like urgent or something. Like there's probably other people in the team that could help you in just drafting the diagrams themselves.
Makes sense.
Cool. Patrick, I see the other Patrick is also here. Is this already taking into account the Gidley side of things?
Is that for me?
Yes. So the Patrick on the call is, I see that there was the other Patrick on the MR that you linked to, or the issue that you linked to. He's already chatting someone there. My question is whether these things that have been published already account for Gidley, or the Gidley is a separate effort.
Well, the diagrams mentioned Italy. It involves Italy, not the details of Italy. It just shows the RPC that we call. And that's it.
I see. Gidley client diff stitcher.
Yeah. And like the
Interesting.
find commit RPC, this commits RPC.
Got it. Okay. Could be interesting. Definitely interesting. I think at a certain point we're going to need to have a specific call to discuss these, but until we have the shards from source code, at least that it'll be premature. So let's have that happen. And then once we have it, we can have a call or we can have a topic on one of the calls to dissect these things and go together, because I feel like it'd be interesting to get like sort of a demo. We should all read them, like you suggested, like we should all make sure that we understand them. But there's going to be things that are going to be interesting to go and analyze them together and have some questions across the board. Okay, so to do there is just to complete the ones in source code. From the front end side, Phil, is there, I know that you linked to the sketch that you did at a certain point in time.
Yeah. So we got that one for the components that use. I just need to go through what actually happens when we get the response from the dispatch stuff, because we do a lot on the front end. So I need to go through that and write on all the extra stuff that we do on top of it.
Okay. All right. And we need to account for, does it all, I can't remember if that already accounted for the file by file. File by file mode.
If what accounted for it.
If the chart that we already have created, if it covered the logic that we have in the case of file by file.
I don't think so.
Okay, we could give that to Thomas to cover that part of the flow. But is the target to also have a mermaid chart created out of that Excalibur flow chart? Is that what
Well, I think Amy wanted me to make one, but like I don't like mermaid, so didn't fancy making it.
I don't love mermaid, but I can do
it. All right, we can give you then. So we can give you the task to kind of convert the chart that Phil created, and then collaborate through there to get the front end. Because I feel like it's going to be a huge part of looking at the whole logic of front end as well. This is more for us on the front end side of things, but for Jacques' benefit and for ours as well, it will be useful to get a glimpse of what is all the logic we have, and which ones are specific to merge requests and which ones aren't. From your side, Jack, I think right now the logic is pretty just the Hamel based rendering the blob viewers, but it could be useful to still have a sort of a short summary of what we do right now. Because we don't want to miss anything that might be present there. So it could be useful to have something on your side as well. Okay.
Yep, sure.
Awesome. And if you could aim to have something ready by next week, maybe not Thursday, the next call, but maybe next Tuesday, to give time for source code and the front end to prepare. It would be nice to have something like a name or a goal to start reviewing them together across groups on Tuesday. So let's make that as a goal for everybody.
Just to
Okay,
clarify, where's the chart that Phil has already
Yes.
made? And
I thought I was sharing the screen. I am not sharing the screen. So here on this comment, but I'll just put the link
yeah.
here. So Thomas will pick this up and create mermaid.
And you had mentioned this is maybe just a subset of the things that the front end is doing.
Correct.
Did you want just to convert this to mermaid for the next Tuesday meeting, or do you want the whole front end diffs as a mermaid chart?
So
you're like, yeah, it'd be great to have the whole thing.
if you're asking,
yeah,
I'll
okay.
like all of it.
Right. Okay.
I'll give you more reasonable thing. It's important to have this in a way that it can be compared to source code, for example, but also we can evolve over time. So if you only have this, it would be a great start, because if you think about it, the file by file mode, which is absent here, it reuses a lot of the logic. It's the way that the files are loaded and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it might just be a separate mermaid chart altogether. So this is a nice start to have. So let's aim to have this, and then we'll iterate through there. We'll iterate from there.
Okay. I noticed this is mostly just components. I would also like to see something, maybe not the same chart, but I would like to see one for like data flow too, because that's it's we have there's a lot of logic, and we might be able to improve that as well. But we can get to that some other time, or I can work on it my own.
No, sure. And I think that this was part of the effort trying to understand the logic that we had throughout the whole tree of components and everything. So the context was slightly different. I mean, do whatever's more reasonable at this point. If you think that this is a nice hint, but then you produce a separate mermaid chart, we won't be upset. We want to understand exactly how things are flowing through the apps, through the front end app, to kind of see where the unifying parts that we can pull, and then eventually you can have a tree component diagram too.
Hey Phil, what is the red component? There's only one.
There is a reason why it's red. I just don't remember the reason why it was red.
Cool.
It's the worst defender.
All right.
I think if you think about it, diff row has discussion.
I think maybe because it's the only functional component, but like it's not a massive deal.
Okay, that's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, nothing else is red. It's interesting, but yes. Cool. That takes care of that. Let's keep evolving. I think we're making good progress there. We know that this is like grueling and it's very complex things. I also wanted to impress on all of us that this is not the end goal, right? The current state of things is just so that we can all wrap our heads around and we can unify it, but it won't be part of the final architecture. Eventually, bits of it will survive, but this is just to get so what I'm saying is, don't be perfectionist, right? Don't polish things into publishing into a Medium article. Like it's just for internal consumption and potentially docs, but it's not the end of the goal here on this effort. If you have to cut corners, that's fine. If you have to use Comic Sans, please do. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I might have to use Comic Sans.
Yeah, just don't quote me on it. My reputation will go down the drain. All right, that takes care of the documentation of the current implementation of Diffs across GitLab. Anything else that we need to discuss synchronously? We have some open issues that we can take care of asynchronously, but is there anything else that anybody feels we need to discuss at this point? Oh, Patrick, you had a bit of a tip here. Oh, the Mermaid Life.
Yeah, just for live editing, because it's hard if you don't have that.
It's the one I use. Yeah, that's the one I use. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Okay. Anything else? So you have time. Go ahead.
Is it worth brainstorming on the order of priorities for two reasons? One, the list that you created may not be the full list, and two, as I think Patrick and I have both mentioned, I think there are two classes of priorities. There's one, I think there's like binaries, like things that we either do or do not, and we have to like accessibility. Like I don't know why we would only do half accessibility. And then there's things that are like on a scale, like maintainability or performance or whatever. And I wonder if it might be a good idea to sort of separate that. Like,
yeah,
when I wrote that comment, I was like, we should always have accessibility. I don't know. That should just be like a measure of completeness of a feature. And so I wonder if we should create a list of things that we can put on a sliding scale and things that we either do or do not. Is that worth? I mean, we can discuss it async, but I wonder if that's worth like
I don't know,
documenting somewhere.
If we have the time, I think it's important to clarify what we have there. Like we talked about it, that list was haphazardly put together on the call. It's bound to be incomplete, bound to be adjusted as we go. So yeah, that's the perfect time. So do you wanna present specifically what, like, share the screen and potentially propose something else?
I don't have it open currently.
It's up top. It's up top on the open issues. I'm going to try to highlight it.
There yeah. What are my priorities? Sure, I can show my screen. Yeah, so reiterating what I just said, this may not be the whole list, and I sort of see these as two different classes of things. We have like an implementation type thing, which we can put on a scale of what should we sacrifice versus other things, versus product completeness or feature completeness, where like I don't think we should really ever sacrifice accessibility, for example. That's part of the feature. So like, should we, I'm gonna log in, very cool. Should we create two lists here? One list of things that we either do or do not Boolean, and one list of things that we can kind of pit against other things. That's kind of my idea.
Yeah, I think you might want to stop sharing the screen for this. You're on the screen share. You're recording. There you go.
Doesn't matter. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. So you have a point here. In terms of accessibility is still technically a spectrum, because you could have different levels of compliance depending on what you go for, right?
Sure.
We have if you're using the WCAG, you have the AAA, the AA, the single A, depending on how much compliant and how much testing, manual testing, automated testing you have involved. So accessibility itself is a spectrum. You might have a point that we might not want to sacrifice that. So I think if anything, it comes to a point of like the goals we have of like perceived performance, accessible, having opposites, which is like developer experience, which is maintainability, I guess. Yeah, coverage might just not be the best, I guess.
I think that's actually kind of an interesting one, because I think there are times when we could say implementing this feature is going to be absolutely crucial to widespread adoption of new diffs or whatever. Or we could say implementing this feature will add so much complexity to diff generation or whatever that it will dramatically hurt our performance, and that's kind of, it's the antithesis of what we're trying to do here. So I mean, coverage I think is probably a good thing to bring in there, because that's going to be a question.
Yeah,
Like,
especially because the repository and merge requests have different back pinnings or whatever we want to call it.
yeah,
And if anything, it would be helpful to understand. So, for example, if it's harder to implement on a certain scenario, should that be enough to not implement it there? Or, for example, as long as it doesn't hinder performance, we should still strive to implement it there. It's like try to implement as much as we can everything on all scenarios, except when it hinders perceived performance, which would be at the top. That comes at priority, but not maintainability. Well,
so yeah, that actually raises an interesting point. I would make the case, and maybe I'm not the right advocate for this, but I would make the case that a lot of times our performance problems eventually come from having done something because we needed to ship it. Like, we've got to get this feature out, we have to complete this thing, and we just did it, instead of focusing on, okay, is this going to hurt the application's performance? Is this going to hurt the application's maintainability? And eventually we get to a point where performance is a problem. And by the way, back-end people, I'm coming purely from a front-end perspective. I'm not talking about back-end stuff. So I think that, like, completeness and maintainability actually has a long-term effect on performance. And so the maintainability aspect of code, I think, is actually more important than it seems. Like on surface, you might be like, we'll do performance first and then coverage, and then we'll put maintainability because meh. But eventually, I think sacrificing maintainability over those other two things will eventually hurt performance. That's the case that I would make.
I think you just give the order right there, because for example, if we do care that the project is maintainable, because we do care that things are future proofing and you can work with it in the future, we can add more features in the future, but if something is not available everywhere, it doesn't seem like a deal breaker, mostly because if it's not available everywhere, it's because at the cost of the perceived performance and the maintainability. So if we leave accessibility out of the equation, the order becomes pretty apparent, I would say.
And that would be what I just said, performance, coverage, maintainability.
No, it would be perceived performance at the top. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Then would come maintainability,
Okay.
and then it would come coverage. So coverage, we would be willing to sacrifice coverage if it's for the sake of maintainability or perceived performance. And of course, this is not like black and white. This is not binary rules, right? We'll still quantify whether it's worth implementing this across all scenarios, and what's the impact of maintainability, how much complexity do we have to introduce, and can we isolate it in a way that it's safe enough. So there's still a conversation around it, but it still gives us pause to kind of like, okay, if we need to, that seems to be, because here's the thing, I think there's going to be scenarios where full coverage doesn't make sense from a usability perspective, from a context perspective, from just the object we're talking about. Which essentially means that, I don't know, some certain feature, and we're talking about, let's take commenting, for example. commenting. Does commenting have the same weight on a merge request than it does on a repository commit? For usability perspective? I don't think so. I think they're different weights.
Yeah.
Right? Would you agree? Anybody? Would you all agree? Because if you think about it, the merge request review is the moment where that code is being revised. When it's repository, it could be at rest. It could be at the default branch. And who's going to see it? Who's going to see that comment?
So by weight, you mean how important is it
Importance,
to do to make sure we have? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. No, it doesn't mean that we're not going to have comments. We might. I'm just saying that they carry different importances depending on the context. And if, for example, if at the beginning this component, this app doesn't support comments on every context, and if you think about it, this is already true. Like when you're creating a new form, so when we're comparing branches, comments still doesn't make sense, does it? When we're opening a new form, why would you comment when you're opening a new form? Sorry, when you're opening a new merge request. So we already have this scenario where certain contexts will definitely not have full coverage of the features. So that's a no-brainer. So if we remove accessibility, how do we guarantee that accessibility is?
I think as maybe as part of our meaningful metrics, or maybe as a different thing, we just need to define the things that are like what is a feature, and I think a feature is like it's accessible, it matches your style guide, and it's complete functionality or whatever. I think accessibility just has to be one of the things that defines how we know we're done. I don't know if that's a meaningful metric or not, but
Okay, I think I can take that. I think it definitely makes sense because I struggle to put accessibility here because it's like you said, it's sort of like a principle of development that we definitely need to have it from the get-go.
And we
would never sacrifice it.
Yeah, and to your point about like there are different levels of accessibility, I think Paulina in the meaningful metrics posted like all of the accessibility guidelines for content editors, essentially, which is what we would have. And she recommended, she's like, let's do AA, not AAA. And like that could be something that we like, the accepted feature is AA accessibility. We don't have to worry about AAA right now, but like that's the level that we get to or whatever.
Yeah, I like putting that as a acceptance metric, as a what do we call it? Meaningful metric. Okay. So I'm putting here ordered list. Does anybody here on the call object to that list? Removing accessibility.
So I don't object to it. I will throw a wrench into it though. We've essentially said coverage is the last thing, the lowest priority. We'll focus on performance maintainability first. That level coverage is something where other stakeholders have much more interest, right? Like Kai will be much more interested in coverage than maintainability, presumably. Is that how do we bring other stakeholders into this conversation without sacrificing sort of the integrity of the architectural discussion? Because like we could say, okay, we're gonna have this architectural discussion outside of like product, and then but that's sort of sticking our head in the sand because at some point we are going to run into product needs.
That's a great question. The way that I see this list is pre-agreed upon, ordered by default. Like it's something that we'll use to decide things on the go as we go. There are always going to be cases where we get overridden. And this will come from the perspective of sometimes user experience, sometimes product, sometimes, for example, I can already think about one. Code quality. I was wrapping my brain around that. Code quality. We have that in the merge request, right? What this means is for that to come in, it cannot come at the cost of maintainability and perceived performance. They can still come in, not at the cost of maintainability and perceived performance, which means that it will not be just spaghetti code thrown into the code base. It would have to be something accounted for with some potentially some, plugin architecture, decorators, options, user preferences, whatever it is. It needs to come with the perspective of maintainability, but also it could not hinder performance. And I think it's already working. Look at that. It's already working in the way that we want to, is that they can still come. Coverage can still be achieved 100% of the time. You just cannot suffer. It cannot become at a cost of maintainability and performance. So again, we're not closing the door on product. We're just creating the framework by how this app will survive over the years.
That's going to be the hardest part, is enforcing that.
I'll have Kai.
That's a social thing, not a technical thing.
All right, that sounds good. Now the question is this list complete? Is there anything else that we need to look out for, or is this good enough to start?
I think, assuming that we have more discussions on the meaningful metrics and what is maintainability issues, and really nail down those two, like what will get us performance, what will get us maintainability. I think this is enough for now, but we really have to nail down those concepts.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody? Any other thoughts on this? Cool. So Thomas, can you post a comment in that issue, just saying that we discussed this in the weekly call and we arrived at this result, order the list, 3 points, and the accessibility is taking part of meaningful metrics, which will be defined in that other issue. And we'll get ourselves a list, and then we'll keep it open for, I don't know, a week. And then if nobody complains, merge it.
Yeah,
just giving time for people to contribute. That's all we want. We might be missing something obvious, but I really like the discussion, so I feel like we're making progress. Awesome. I'll put that on you. Anything else to discuss, folks? There will come a time, I think, where we'll going to be starting to discuss what changes we need to do to Gitly to get data fragmented. Sorry. Getting the data fragmented and how the front end should deal with that, with, streaming information into the front end, what kind of components, trees and view and web component, that will come. But I think for now, we need to get a strong foundation and understanding of all the scenarios here, and it will get more exciting later on, I expect. Not a promise, it's a hope.
Jumping too early to implementation will always causes pain. So
right. So I think we're taking a good time with it. Thanks everybody. If nobody has any other points, we can call it here. Have some free time back. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
thanks, everybody.
Take care.